Welcome to the Financial Liberty Podcast. Until you wake up from the American dream, financial uncertainty will be your American reality. Join Sam Legaspi and Koz Tsukamoto and their guests as they explore how you can attain financial liberty by uncovering truths that have been kept secret for decades. Have you ever played a game and didn't know the rules? How can you ever win? Learn the rules to the game and in turn, learn how to win. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Financial Liberty Project with Sam Legaspi and Koz Tsukamoto. Today is their inaugural podcast. This is the chance for you to get to know them on a personal level and on a business level. And I got some questions I'm going to ask. I don't know how many. A few for business, and then we're going to get into my favorite questions, which are all the personal stuff. And I'm hoping that there's a few embarrassing stories. And between these two, I guarantee there will be. They've been working together for a very long time. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Wonderful.
Great. Just love it.
How are you, Eric?
I'm doing well. What do you love specifically? I think that was Koz. What are you loving specifically today?
I just love the opportunity to live, to get out there and just bring forth the best that I have to the world.
All right. This isn't the Miss America pageant, bud. This is your podcast, but we'll go with that.
He was walking down the aisle.
Well, there you go. Do you have
World
a tiara
peace.
on? Is there a tiara involved at all? No comment?
We're talking about that.
Okay, we're not going to ask that as
We'll
the
give you a
first question.
final decision next week.
Okay. All right. So I'd like to get to know you guys a little bit and let our audience get to know you guys. You've been doing radio for quite some time, and you have a great audience there, and we're hoping that they come right over to the podcast side, which we consider the better side of recording. Of course, I say that, but I want
dark side.
Yeah, you know how it is. But I want the audience to get to know you a little bit, so I've got some questions. You guys ready?
Absolutely.
We are.
All right. I'm going to start with Sam. How did you get interested in financial services?
Oh, my gosh. You're making me dig way back when. Well, it was really interesting is that I was in college, going to Cal State University, Long Beach, and I was taking economics, and that was my major. And it was one of these where initially I got into it because I found out that the exams were all pretty much Scantron and there was no blue book essays involved. So
nice.
I didn't necessarily have to overly think. And I was a really good test taker at that time. So I was able to rule out A, B, C, or D. So I got into economics based on the Scantrons. But at one point I started recognizing, hey, what am I going to do with my life with an economics degree? So I ended up going to several of my professors' office times and discovered that I could either be an economist, which that didn't sound too appealing, or one of my economics teachers says, well, you could be a stockbroker. That's another one. I go, well, that sounds intriguing. So what ended up happening is I started looking at the classified sections and to be a stockbroker's assistant. And I ended up becoming I was asked to come on in for a small and short interview over at Prudential Securities over in Long Beach. And I met what would soon be my boss, and he hired me on the spot. Wow. And by hiring me on the spot, he said, "Hey, here's a list of people to call. Here's a script. Go call them." And that was my foray into the financial services business from a very basic standpoint. But what ended up happening is that over the course of about a year and a half, 2 years, I started understanding the business more, and I started to really delve deeper into it. And the great part about working with the people that I worked with is that they allowed me to ask several questions, and I was a very curious individual. And before you knew it, I started to really enjoy and like what I was doing. And I found out that, hey, this is something that I can do with my economics degree. And
Nice.
So it all started with the Scantron.
Always starts with the Scantron. Got it. Now, Koz, you had a bit of a different path getting to where you're at today. From what I understand, and we haven't had a whole lot of time to talk about this, but you actually started as an engineer, right? You drove trains. Is that how that works?
No.
Oh.
People called me Urkel, and I got tired of being called that, so I decided on a career change. No, the truth is I have a computer science background. Went to a great university in Southern California, UC Irvine, and I became an engineer. I was hired out of college, and I worked on global positioning systems known as GPS before anybody knew really what it was. And I remember getting up early in the mornings at all different times of day just to go out and test equipment to track GPS satellites. Back in the days, we're talking like the mid 80s.
Wow.
And so I did that. I worked on militarized software applications for GPS. And but what happened was when I shortly after I was hired on, the company I worked for had a massive layoff, and I'd never seen one happen. I was experiencing it before my very eyes. And what I began to notice was it was the guys that had some white hair that were getting laid off. And so I had spoken to my supervisor, and I said, hey, what's going on here? Why are all these guys getting laid off? And I just got hired recently, and I'm being spared. And he says, well, there's a thing called age risk, and you get to your 50s, and corporations like to get rid of the people that are making a good salary, and under the belief that they can hire new college grads and replace them. People with less experience are replacing people with great experience. And so that always stuck out in my mind. And I just knew when I was in my 20s that before I get to the age of the 50s that I would have my own business, or I'd be doing something that I have complete control over, where I'm not going to have to face a layoff decision made by somebody else other than me.
Yeah.
And so that was part of it. And so I was always entrepreneurial, looking for opportunities. I was also investing in the market, both Wall Street and real estate. And I had a tremendous amount of experience just firsthand in both of those areas. And it just kind of like naturally evolved into transitioning out of engineering and real estate. Wall Street became my new home. And I eventually got positions where I was raising capital, helping investors, and a lot of people started reaching out to me and asking for opinions. And so I decided to go ahead and just turn it into a formal business. Then Sam and I met, and we decided to partner up and on the education side, and just get the information out there to the masses. Because the reality is, I would say on a daily basis, we run into people who have done a lot of things right, but unfortunately, there's always a few things that they've not done right, and it's due to a lack of information, knowledge, and our duty is to get that information out to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sam, you really kind of founded the Financial Liberty Project. How long ago was that?
Actually, it's been in the works for a little while. I mean, I've always wanted to provide more education because I saw a weakness in the market that individuals just were underinformed, and they were constantly just trying to find information, and they were raw for this type of information. And so what ended up happening was constantly, I would have these discussions with myself and also with Koz, and we would, just like, okay, there's got to be a better way to educate these individuals, because these individuals were going to workshops, they were going to seminars, and what was going on is that a lot of these seminars were based on your rhetoric, just the same thing over and over again, a product-based seminar. Here's the product, this is what it does for you, and these are the features and the benefits, your typical sales type of thing. And so, we wanted to expand on that, and I figured, hey, you know what? This is an opportunity. I just love educating. I love talking about information that isn't necessarily out there, because I see the looks on people's faces and they go, oh my gosh, that's crazy. I didn't know that existed. And every time that happens, it kind of rings a bell. It's like, wow, I can't believe you just don't know that. And after a while, you keep hearing people continuously keep saying, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. And this person didn't tell me that. I just went to a workshop, they didn't tell me that. So what ended up happening was it all was born from a possible classroom type setting where there would be maybe 5, 6, 7 sessions all in a classroom type setting. And we were going to talk about everything from what is a stock, what is a bond, and retirement and education and debt, and break them all up. And so what we recognized was that there's something here that I think that people would really like to see it and they could enjoy. But at the same time too, is that by delving into this and researching it myself, I started discovering that there's not a lot of information out there. And for some of the organizations that are trying to provide financial information out there, financial literacy, you may want to call it, it's our opinion that they've been doing it incorrectly, and that the financial literacy isn't really financial literacy in any way whatsoever. It's just maybe another means to sell a product. And so that's what we were all about, is that ever since I got into this business back in 1993, is that for the longest time I recognized that you just can't sell a product, features and benefits. That's just not how it works as far as I'm concerned, and how I've always practiced my business. But it's always been about educating, and providing that education, and people will start coming and they'll start listening to you. It's really just providing as much outflow as you possibly can, because the inflow will ultimately come back.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I picture every salesman that they are an educator, right? But they're really only educating you on the finer points or the positives of whatever product they're trying to sell you. They can tell you all the great things about this bus, but they also don't tell you that it won't fit in your garage, right? It doesn't fit the rest of your lifestyle if they try to sell you something like that. And product pushers are one of the reasons that education gets stunted, I think, in a lot of ways. So that's really interesting. Koz,
absolutely.
Koz, what is your role in the organization or at the Financial Liberty Project?
It's real simple. I consider myself a conduit of experience and information, knowledge about money. So Sam and I go through our lives. We meet people every day, as I said, and there's not a day that goes by that we don't run into a situation that we really feel like there's a lesson to be learned. And so we bring those experiences, names withheld, of course, but the experiences come to the general public through our show, our podcast, and that's my role is to provide that information and experience to the masses.
Well, Koz, just for your own library, my name is Eric, and I leased a minivan for 3 years, and it was the worst mistake ever. And you can tell people that.
Absolutely. I hear you laughing, Eric, but these are the things that we talk about. Is I think Sam will be talking about debt, but it's one of our things that we try to get people to understand what is the reality of financing or buying things that we're not ready for to have in our lives.
Yeah, exactly. It had 3 TVs. It was fantastic, but again, the salesman told me all the positives. Just didn't see the negatives. The emotion was there, and that's kind of what I got hung up on. All right. Besides, like what we were just talking about as far as debt and consumerism, if you will, what do you see are the largest issues people face when it comes to money in general?
Well, I mean, that's there's so many, and that's the beauty of the Financial Liberty Project and the podcast that we're putting together, is that we're going to be uncovering a lot of hidden rules that are out there. And you'll constantly and oftentimes hear us say that, how can you win a game if you don't know the rules to that particular game? So, I'd probably say that one of the biggest games that are out there, and it truly is a game. It happens to be the game of debt and not understanding debt fully. And oftentimes Koz and I will say that we are the elective that people should have taken in high school, or the class that for one semester in college would have really changed their lives.
Absolutely.
And I happen to feel that the game of debt and understanding debt and not getting into debt is one of the main drivers to the inabilities for people to not wake up and worry about money. Because a lot of times we'll say that everyone's goal, everyone's ideal is to wake up and not have to worry about money. I've yet to run into a person that says, "Hey, when I grow up, I want to worry about money all day long."
Exactly.
We all want to wake up and not have to worry about money. And how can that be done when at a very early age, I'm talking really early, Eric, is that we're training our kids on how to utilize debt. Not just long ago, one of my kids just told me, "Hey, can you put money in my food, my balance, my food account at school?"
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was like, wait, hold on. Okay. So that's right. We didn't make a lunch. We were too busy. I'm one of, I have 6 kids. So we had a very busy evening. We couldn't make lunches for them. And so what ended up happening is that my wife decided to go ahead and put money in. And I guess they put in this brand new application where every time you contribute, you put money into a kid's account, they're going to charge you $3. And I was like, whoa, hold on. So if I just if I put $20, $50 or 100, even at 100, it's 3% of that 100. So it's not 3% just at one time. It's every single time. So what I ended up doing was I ended up saying, okay, here's $3. And we didn't do that. I actually gave him 3 $1 bills. And what I started recognizing is as he was coming home, is I was recognizing that he wasn't spending his entire $3. He was actually just spending about maybe $1.50. But lunch was, $3. And there were days that he didn't eat lunch, but he started thinking, well, I don't want to eat lunch. I want to save my $3. But not having that around, what was going on is that he was just spending up. What we found was about $5 in credit a day. So, just changing. It's interesting that the school system, what we discovered was enabling these individuals and teaching them how to spend money that they couldn't see.
Exactly.
And it got to a point where he was able to hold those 3 $1 bills, and he saw the money and he didn't want to part with it. And it was a little bit different. It's kind of like how we grew up back in the day, is that, it was $1.50 for lunch, and we got the $1.50. We didn't have it. We didn't eat. Today, if you don't have money in the account, over in school, if you don't have, especially at school, if you don't have money in the account, they will go ahead and say, not a problem. We'll go ahead and feed you anyways. It just goes into debt, and now he has a negative. So I think it's just, some of the messages that are out there are incorrect. And so I think I may have gotten a little off track, and I think I missed the point on the mark here. But,
No, I think this is the point, right? This is the point of the podcast, is that those are the everyday things that people don't even know. A lot of people don't know, what's going on with their kid's account. My daughter had the same situation where we would have something on there, but I never thought of it at the grade school level, right? My daughter was in high school when that was really coming forward. And so it was a little bit easier to talk to her because we'd already talked about finances. But yeah, I didn't even think about at grade school level, they don't have any concept of it. And that's just, the money's just there. I swipe this card, and they actually had cards that they would swipe so they would know that they had credit on their card. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I can imagine grade schoolers. That's training from a very, very early age in the wrong way. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
Well, and that leads me, my next question was going to say, hey, how does the Financial Liberty Project fit into this? But obviously this education is exactly what they need, right? I mean, that's what we're looking at.
Eric, I would just add to that by saying that really it's a cultural issue. There's a lot of revolutions going on. We see the news. There's a lot of new things going on. But one of the things that isn't going on is a change in mindset. And Sam's touched on it a great deal. But I'd like to add that it's more. I think it's more of a cultural thing. And culture comes from various sources. It can come from the family, it can come from the government, it can come from our education system. Those are the 3 areas where I see people grow up getting their financial monetary values every day through life, through those 3 conduits. And so, just yesterday I was speaking with my daughter. She's a junior in high school. She's going to be, we're looking at college pretty soon, right? And one of the things that young people are having to face is graduating from a 4 or 5 year, college experience, walking out of there with a diploma, not understanding that they, owe between $100,000 to $300,000. It's like having a mortgage payment given to you for graduating college. That never happened in my days, and so there's something wrong with that. And now we've got young people saying, well, college should be free. I mean, there is something terribly amiss in our young people's thinking. And I highly respect their creativity and their enthusiasm. But I told my daughter, we're not going to have you graduate from a 4 or 5 year college experience owing that kind of money. I mean, I might accept owing $5,000, maybe even $10,000, but anything beyond that is just ridiculous. So we've got to find a way to overcome that cultural way of thinking about things. And Sam called it debt. We are a debt-ridden society. It's happening worldwide. It's happening in the politics. It's happening in the schools and the families. So, one of the greatest battles that Sam and I face every day is as we meet and talk to people and we try to show them how to wake up every day not worrying about money, is that they have to change the way they view the purchase of items in their life. People want instant gratification. They're told that you can have that instant gratification just so long as you have a good FICO score and you're willing to sign on a dotted line. You can fog this mirror, we'll give you a credit card, we'll give you a loan.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way America works. And so what happens is then you end up in my shoes where you're meeting people who, we talked about on our radio show just today about a person who is in her 80s, has dementia, has Alzheimer's, has no money, has just enough from Social Security to just, buy the basic necessities. But a person of that situation needs full-time care. So now
Absolutely.
The 50-year-old daughter has to leave her job to take care of her mom full-time, and they are constantly out of money, and there is no solution because the daughter cannot work, the mom doesn't have any kind of a plan to cover her expenses. And this is the way America is going. It's just that if you live in your 20s with your head in the sand thinking that a credit card is a justified and glorified way to buy a card you can't afford, then you're going to end up just like this, this daughter and her mother. And that's what we're trying to change. I think it's more of a cultural thing. It's a way of thinking, and one person at a time is going to have to be convinced that they have to change how they view the way they purchase things in their life.
Absolutely.
And Eric, we have this thing called the Great American Retirement Crisis. It's the module that we talk about. Oftentimes we'll mention, we talk about kids, we talk about individuals that are millennials, 30, 40, 50-year-olds. But what we really find out is that a lot of these individuals that are retiring, one of the greatest generations ever with 109 million people that are baby boomers, roughly 1/3 of the population, they're now facing a retirement crisis in that a lot of individuals are retiring with a tremendous amount of debt on their hands. Not only do they have to take care of their children, but they're also taking care of their parents, and as well they're taking care of themselves. So it's not too often that we actually find individuals that don't have any debt going into retirement. And it's really hard to enjoy your retirement years when you're pressured into trying to find how you're going to be living and making your expenses over the next 30 some odd years every single month. So an individual with $1 million and he has a married couple have a need of $10,000 a month, which is $120,000. That's 12% on a portfolio. 12% on $1 million portfolio. That's just too high. And a lot of it we find is that 85% of it is debt, and they were never taught about debt. And like what Koz indicated, our parents didn't know too much about debt, and our teachers didn't know too much about debt. And as a result, people don't necessarily know how to handle debt outside of the fact that debt is good.
Yeah, and they didn't talk about it. And we can talk about family generational things. My parents didn't talk to me a whole lot about finances because their parents didn't talk to them because it was taboo, right? It's we don't talk about that. That's not something that we talk about. It's none of your business as a child. Parents take care of it. We'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. But we never really saw what that looked like or how that, all the ins and outs of it. We were told not to get into debt, but never told how not to. So I agree 100%. Now, we focused a lot on kind of what the Financial Liberty Project does and why, and we really hammered in why. Obviously, there's a tremendous need that needs to be filled. But now I need to shift gears because we're getting a little low on time, and I want to ask a couple personal questions just to get to know you guys a little more personally and let our audience know you. Are you okay with that, shifting gears a bit?
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
All right. First question. When you guys aren't working, what do you do for fun?
Silence.
Appropriate fun, gentlemen.
I'll tell you, when I'm not working and what we do for fun it's actually, interesting because it kind of like marries into work at the same time because I've got 6 kids.
So now we know. So what you do for, never mind, go ahead. You make children is what you're doing for fun.
Right. There you go.
Number 7 on the horizon.
And it's interesting.
There's more than a hobby.
We tell people it's like, hey, don't make the mistake of having more than 2. And I'm actually right in the middle of it all because this is at a point where, we keep telling people that children don't necessarily become productive people in society until they graduate college because they're truly just an expense, but a loved expense. Mm-hmm. And so what I do for fun is I watch my kids grow up and I watch them play soccer. I watch them play hockey. I watch them play, they pick up golf now. And so we're really the epitome of what was given birth many years ago by the baby boom generation of soccer mom soccer dad.
Yeah.
So we are soccer mom, soccer dad, ice hockey mom, and every other type of parent that you can possibly find right now.
That's awesome.
And it's, yeah. So whether or not that's fun or not, I see that consuming the majority of my weeks, which is, I got to tell you, Koz and I, we talk about this on a regular basis. Where would we be when it all stops?
Well,
I'm not sure if it's ever going to stop, Sam, because I think we're thinkers, we're creative, and I think we want to make a big difference, through this project. So, again, back to your question, Eric, what do I do if I'm not working, quote unquote, working? I think I'm still kind of working. I think my mind's still, still going 300 miles an hour, thinking, hey, what can I milk out of life? And but let's just say there's a moment where I'm actually not even doing that. Then, I've got a daughter who, as I said earlier, is a junior in high school, and she's given up performing arts, she's given up piano, she's given up languages, just to focus on golf. And that's a big part of my job as a parent, to help her aspire to a competitive golf goal for competing in the college level in the sport. Very unlikely that she's going to move on from there and be a professional golfer, but you never know. But I think a part of that also is just exercising what Sam and I always talk about, which is to stretch one's mind. So with my daughter, a lot of the time is spent on, hey, just believing and saying the right things and just living life in a manner that can avoid a lot of the mistakes that we actually see people making, through our line of work, and just shaping and molding our not just my kid, but Sam with his kids to think in the right manner, so that they're not becoming a sad story on our podcast or radio shows. So but aside from that, because my daughter's a golfer, I like to golf. I like to surf, and that's just a very healthy lifestyle. And
wait. So you just called surfing a healthy lifestyle? Didn't you just show me a picture of sharks in the water? Be aware.
Yeah, it can be unhealthy at times, but
depends on who's faster, I suppose.
You remember my experience? I think it was 2 summers ago where I actually came within a few feet of a great white shark in Huntington Beach, and it was all over the news. Not me, but the shark was.
You weren't all over the news.
Out of 70 surfers in the water, I was the only one that left the water. So maybe I'm the one smart guy in the water, or the guy that is afraid of everything. I don't know.
Wait, hold on. But before that, you went into the water. But prior to that, you actually sent me a photo, and it said, "Hey, Sam, take a look at this." And it was like, "Beware of sharks." And then he went into the water anyways. It was awesome. I love it.
Nice.
I studied statistics in college, and so I figured I had a good chance of coming back out of the water.
Yeah, I think isn't it lightning that you're more likely to get hit by than a shark attack? Something like that.
I don't know. With my luck, I got the odds where I'll probably get struck by lightning while I'm being eaten up by a shark.
Yeah, while you're surfing, then you're just cooked. So it's a well done Koz. What is it, Koz or Koz? All right, guys, I really appreciate the time that you've given me today already. We are getting a little short on time, and so I'm actually I want to split this podcast into 2. We have talked a bit about the Financial Liberty Project and really the passion behind why you guys are so adamant about getting this education out there. And I love that. And I think our audience is going to hear that in your voices for sure. But I don't want to short us on getting to know you personally, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm having a great time, and I want to be able to ask you some really interesting questions, catch you off guard on a couple. Would it be okay if we came back and did the personal questions on a second podcast?
Absolutely.
Well, it depends how personal.
Well, how personal do you want it to be?
Absolutely.
The more personal, the better.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
All right. Yeah. Boxers or brick? No, we won't cover that question on the next one. Guys, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll definitely do the personal questions on the next podcast, and that way the audience can get to know you that way. Thank you for being flexible as you can be. And I'm going to close this out unless you have any closing thoughts for us.
No, thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. See you soon.
All right. Sounds good. And thank you all for listening to the Financial Liberty Project podcast with Sam Legaspi and Koz Tsukamoto. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Sam and Koz come out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at the Financial Liberty Project, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
It's that time again where the call of the open road makes its way. We hope good fortune finds you on your own personal road. And until next time, we thank you for listening to the Financial Liberty Podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available.